NHL player stat leaders, week 16. Today is January 27th, 2019. As you may have noticed, I skipped week 15 for both the player and the team stats because of the All-Star game and the bye week. I thought the stats needed some more time to breathe. And I probably will skip week 17 as well. And that's not for sure yet for the same reason, because there are, I think there's 20 teams that still have their bye week that go until Wednesday or Thursday, which I think is somewhere around January 29th. In any case, enough of me blabbing. Let's get to the board, and let's start with points. Number 1, Nikita Kucherov with 78. Number 2, Mikko Rantanen with 74. Tied for a 3 spot is Johnny Gaudreau and Connor McDavid with 73 points. And tied for 4th spot is Nathan MacKinnon and Patrick Kane with 71. Patrick Kane has clawed his way onto this list. He's had an amazing month or so. I mean, he's had a good season so far, but he's been turning it on at certain points of the season, and in this past 4 weeks, you could say he's been doing a lot. And as Kane goes, as does Chicago, they've been winning more games lately. Who was bumped off this list from last time we talked was Brayden Point, but he's not bumped off the train. He's still high up there. He just didn't make it onto my board. Second thing let's talk about here is goals. Starting with number 1, Alex Ovechkin with 37. 3 players tied in number 2 spot: Jeff Skinner, John Tavares, Brayden Point, all with 30 goals. And then tied for third spot, I only have 2 here, but there's actually 4. Starting with Connor McDavid, Gabriel Landeskog, Johnny Gaudreau, and Patrick Kane, all with 29 goals. Let's talk about Johnny Gaudreau. I think it's time we start calling him an elite forward. I mean, he's supposed to be the playmaker. What's up with that? And now he's scoring goals, too. I mean, he's on pace for what, at least 40, maybe 45 goals this season? That's crazy. I mean, and he'll probably hang on to that, top of the point list there as well. Moving on, assists. Starting with number 1, Nikita Kucherov with 56. Number 2, Blake Wheeler with 52. Number 3, Mikko Rantanen with 51. Number 4, Brent Burns with 46. And tied for 5th spot is Johnny Gaudreau. There he is again. Connor McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon all with 44 points. Something I noticed about this assists part here is that, I don't know if you saw it, but there's only one team from the East on that list, funny enough. I know it's just my list. Still, you could say the same thing almost if you look back at the goals. You'll see that number one through 2 spots are all Eastern teams, and all the 3s are covered by Western teams. I just thought that was kind of amusing. Let's move on to power play goals. Number 1, David Pastrnak, who is also tied with Brayden Point with 13 goals. And tied for number 2 slot, there are 3 players here: Patrick Laine, Mikko Rantanen, and Sean Monahan, all with 11. Let's move on to a new category. In this spot, I usually had shorthanded goals, but I decided to take that out because the numbers just don't really move that much. Maybe I'll bring it back in a few weeks. But I thought I'd put in defenseman points here. I thought that was especially more interesting, not just to the casual hockey viewer, but also to fantasy hockey players and such. So let's look at the list. Starting with number 1 here is Brent Burns. So I have 2 numbers up here in each category for each player, as you can see. The first one is their rank as defenseman, and the second number is how they're ranked overall in points. So number 1 is Brent Burns with 55 points. He's also ranked 12th overall. Number 2 is Mark Giordano with 52 points. He's also tied for 15th overall in overall points. Number 3 is Morgan Riley with 50 points, who's also tied for 17th overall. Number 4 there is John Carlson with 47 points, who's tied for 20th overall. And number 5 is Eric Carlson with 43 points, tied for 24th overall. And number 6, we have Chris Letang, who's tied for 27th overall. Eric Carlson. He's really caught up, huh? And this, one of the reasons I put up this list as well, because we want to talk about the Norris Trophy and who might be getting it this year, because it's not just about points, it's also about total on ice per game statistics as well, to a certain degree. I would think plus minus. And which brings us to the next category, total on ice per game, or as I like to call it, Torbig. All right, number 1, Drew Doughty. All the usual suspects are here. He's got 26.40. Number 2, Ryan Suter with 26.37. Number 3 is actually Chris Letang with 26.08. And number 4 is Seth Jones with 26.01 minutes per game. And now you see the numbers are a little bit jumbled here. I kind of did that so I could just switch the numbers each week as opposed to erasing everything and rewriting the names. It just saves time and saves ink. So I apologize if that throws your eyes off when you look at it. In any case, as you might notice, the only person on both of these lists right now on the defenseman points, the top 6 and the top 4 total on ice per game players, which are all defensemen, is Chris Letang. I'm not saying he's going to get the Norris Trophy, but his name will at least probably be mentioned in there, along with the most obvious one being Brent Burns, and Mark Giordano. Morgan Riley's a tough one because he just doesn't eat as many minutes as most top defensemen. I want to say he's around 20, 21 per night, whereas these other guys are anywhere between 23 and 26. Next category is hits. Starting off with number 1 is William Carrier with 219. Number 2 is Ryan Reeves with 188. Number 3, Milan Lucic with 173. Number 4, Cedric Paquette with 162. Number 5, Chris Wagner with 161. Number 6, Matt Martin makes it onto the board. It's about time, Matt Martin, with 158, who's also tied with Adam Larson with the same number. Now, I looked into something which was curious about William Carrier because he's been in that number spot for a while now, yet that number hasn't changed in, I want to say, about two to 3 weeks. Isn't that amazing? He's been listed up until recently by Vegas as having an illness, and he's missed about, I want to say, 7-8 games right now, and he's still at the top of that list. It's crazy. I mean, they say, and until recently, I believe it was January 22nd, the Golden Knights had a new post saying it's not an illness, she's just recovering from an injury now. So a guy that hits that much, yeah, I bet you he's a little bruised and battered here and there. Who knows, really, in the end, what he's got. But could be a dislocated shoulder, it could be fracture. In any case, it'll be interesting to see if he comes back right after the All-Star break / bye week. The new guy on this list is Matt Martin, who has bumped Robert Hagg off of the Philadelphia Flyers from this hit list. Moving on to face-off win percentage. We've got a little surprise here, actually. Jason Spezza finally dethrones Claude Giroux. I think that's the first time this year. Giroux has not been in that number 1 spot. So we have Jason Spezza. And number 2, we have Claude Giroux. Number 3, we have Ryan O'Reilly. Number 4, we have Sean Couturier. He's new to this list, also from Philadelphia. And number 5, Jonathan Toews, who's also new to this list. Who did they bump off? Luke Glendening and Adam Lowry off of my top 5 here. Shooting percentage. Number 1, Elias Pettersson. Number 2, Alex Chiasson. Number 3, Braden Point. Number 4, Mark Scheifele. Number 5, Leon Draisaitl. Again, all the numbers are kind of mixed up there because I just wanted to save time and save ink. Let's talk about who's new and who got bumped from this list. Valtteri Filippa got bumped off my list here and was placed by Leon Draisaitl. Let's talk about shots. Number 1, Nathan McKinnon with 217. Number 2, Patrick Kane with 203. Number 3, Jonathan Marchessault with 198. And tied for 4th spot is Alex Ovechkin with 196 and Tyler Seguin. Who's new and old? Dylan Larkin was bumped from my top 5 here and was replaced by Jonathan Marchessault from the Vegas Golden Knights. Blocked shots. Number 1, Ian Cole with 133, tied with Andy Green. Number 2, we have a 3-way tie between Brent Seabrook, Nicholas Hamilton, if that's how you say his name, and Chris Russell. What's different about this list from week 14? Ryan Ellis was bumped off and replaced by Nicholas Hamilton from the Arizona Coyotes. Of course, Ellis being from the Predators. Next up, let's talk about goalies, starting with goals against average. Number 1, Robin Lehner. Number 2, Jack Campbell. Number 3, Ben Bishop. Number 4, Tuukka Rask. And number 5, Anton Khudobin. Robin Lehner has taken sole possession of first place there. Curtis McElhinney has been completely bumped off my top 5, as has Pekka Rinne, who's not on this list anymore. The newcomers are obviously Anton Khudobin and Tuukka Rask, and Ben Bishop has been bumped up from the number 4 spot to the number 3 spot. Save percentage. Number 1, tied in that spot is Jack Campbell and Robin Lehner. Number 2 is Andrei Vasilevsky. 3, tied for third spot, is Frederik Andersen and Anton Khudobin. There's Anton Khudobin now on 2 of those lists, on the goals against and the save percentage. And Ben Bishop isn't far off either. Dallas is getting some steady goaltending. I don't think they'd even be in the wild card headspace right now if it wasn't for those 2 guys. Casey DeSmith of the Pittsburgh Penguins and Yaroslav Halak of the Boston Bruins were bumped off my list here from week 14 and replaced by Frederik Andersen and Anton Khudobin. Wins category. Number 1, Marc-Andre Fleury. Number 2, Martin Jones. Martin Jones is number 2. Number 3, Frederik Andersen. Number 4, Connor Hellebuyck. And tied for 5th spot there is Carey Price and Andrei Vasilevsky. Also, I couldn't fit him on the spot, but tied for the 5th spot with 20 wins is Devan Dubnyk from the Minnesota Wild. Sergei Bobrovsky has been bumped off my top list here and replaced by Carey Price. Frederik Andersen is back in the game. He came off a groin injury. He got a couple of wins since the last board I put up. And Martin Jones is still racking up wins, even though he doesn't even have a 900 save percentage. Boom! Yeah. Shutouts. Number 1, Marc-Andre Fleury with 6. And although I only fit 2 guys here with 3 shutouts tied for second, there's actually 6 more goalies tied for the number 2 spot. And that is Carey Price from the Montreal Canadiens, Pekka Rinne from the Nashville Predators. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions about who's on the board or who's not on the board. Hit that like button if you like this video. Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you happen to have any Hockey Geek friends, hey, please don't feel shy about sharing. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.